Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Difference Makers Media Show. This is Lynn Sanders, your host and the story marketing mentor, and I am really glad you're here today. Our mission is to empower, inspire, and motivate you, the difference maker, the person who goes out and make a positive impact in the world, to make a bigger difference by telling your story strategically. And we help you at Difference Makers Media do that through coaching, writing, marketing, and media. I especially love this format of interactive live media because then we can really get to know each other. You can see me, and afterwards I can see you, and we can interact live. So I encourage you, whether you've watched lots of shows in the past or are new to this whole format, please leave your name and comments or questions in the comment stream so we can have a chance to talk with you and share. Now, a lot of you out there who know me know I have not been active on the Difference Makers show. I haven't really been very active at all on Hangouts on Air. I've gone through a lot of very strong challenges over the past 5.5 months, probably the hardest time in my life. I had unfortunately had to go through a challenge of having my younger son, Andrew, suffer a series of strokes at the end of October. So obviously my world turned upside down and I wasn't going to be doing much online. But thanks to a lot of positive energy, and I want to thank you right now for being here. Each of you have positive energy, and we're connected together through that energy. Many of you sent prayers. You kept me in your thoughts. You sent out this positive, loving energy that I could feel, and I felt it really made a huge impact in healing our son, Andrew. He's doing much better, progressing. We still have a little ways to go, but I feel really, really hopeful and optimistic that he will ultimately have a full recovery or pretty close to a full recovery. And in thinking about reactivating the show, and I would like to be able to continue doing the show, even if it's a once a month or twice a month basis. I kind of connected with a friend who I haven't been in touch with a long time, and she is our guest for today. But before I introduce her, because she's all about focus and positive focus, and that's what attracted me to having her as our first guest in our reactivated show, I want to thank a very dear special friend who is our wingman today, the popular host of the Saturday Morning Smarties Show, also the host of the What is the Difference? I forgot the name of your What is the Difference in Positive? You'll have to tell me. And also the president and founder of R&D Hotline, who's been so great in doing my website for me. So Roland Takaoka, would you come on and let's say thanks to you.
Well, thank you for that introduction. And I appreciate it very much. Just being here is a very special thing. And coming into the green room, I was a little bit behind schedule, but as soon as I got here, the two of you were engaged in conversation already, and it was like there was no holds barred, nonstop. And I know that this is going to be a great conversation. I'm very happy and honored to be here.
Thank you. Can you acknowledge some of the people, Roland, who are listening right now?
Yes, I can. I know that Gary Whalen has been in and around for some time this morning. Also, B. Wallace checked in, and Bill Graham is in the audience. So I'm really glad to see him again. So those are some of the people, and I believe that we'll be building up as time goes.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming. It really means a lot to have you here. And now let me give you a brief introduction to our very special guest, Carol C.C. Miller. Carol is a positivity consultant. Imagine that. And she is the founder of Positive Focus. Her work has touched millions of lives with maximum joy and passion through personal consulting, writing, speaking, and running her organization, Positive Focus. Carol also started a global movement called Global Free Hugs. So I want to have her share with you her stories and how it can make an impact in your life as well. Carol, welcome to our show, and would you say hello to all our guests?
Hello, everyone, and Lynn and Roland, thank you so much for having me, and I love being your first guest back, so it's perfect about embracing life with the challenges and the celebrations that we go through.
That's very true. Tell us a little bit about Positive Focus first before we go into the Global Free Hugs movement. What do you do, and how did you decide to come up with a company like that?
Certainly. I had actually been taking science of mind courses years ago, and I just loved the power of our thoughts. So I wanted to create something to teach people and help them learn more about it, and that's where Positive Focus came from. So we do events on mind-body service, and service, charity, and fun and social events, all around on focusing on love over fear, focusing on health over illness, focusing on abundance over lack, and focusing on peace over conflict. I mean, there's things that go on in the world that we have no control over, but we can control how we see it.
I love that. That is true. I felt that when my son was ill at the hospital. We can control our thoughts, and it's so important to think positively. In fact, I met you, if you remember, years and years ago at one of your business events. It was packed. I think it was Janet Atwood.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think it's terrific that what you're doing is bringing positive focus to a world that desperately needs it. How about global free hugs? How did you even think about something like that?
Well, I started Positive Focus. We actually became a nonprofit in 2009, but I started events in 2007, early 2008. And I had heard about the free hug movement. It's a man named Juan Man, and he has a video on YouTube that you can go with over 77 million views now. Wow. And I had watched it many times, and every time I would tear up. It was just like it was such an impactful video to watch. And we'd been doing events for Positive Focus, and I'm like, that just seems natural that Positive Focus should do it. I was terrified because I was by no means a hugger before I saw that video. But I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do it once a month through 2008. And the first time I did it, there were not as many hugs. It was January, and it was snowing. It was at Navy Pier by the lake. It was not the brightest idea to go there, but I was hooked. You see people, and they just light up by that acknowledgement.
Weren't you scared? I mean, did you go by yourself, Carol? I can't imagine someone just saying, okay, I'm going to start giving free hugs.
Many people do it by themselves. I had a few people with me. I mean, usually I'm the first one there, and then a few people join me. I believe that first one there was like 6 of us there doing it, and it definitely, the power in numbers. Now there's a point where too many, it gets overwhelming to people where they don't want to come up to you as well. But I like having a wingman like Roland there with me, kind of thing. So
yeah, definitely.
I need my wingman hugger.
Definitely. At the end of this, I promised everyone a virtual hug from you, so we're going to make sure everyone feels hugged today. But for now, I mean, tell us, what do people need if they want, you started this on a global basis, so let's first continue the story, then we'll get into details of how to do this. So how did you go about doing this just by yourself and a few volunteers to making a huge leap and deciding to make this a global movement?
There are people who like to research things out and get a strategic plan before they do something. That is not me. I'm a think about it, jump in and do it. And sometimes I'm like, oh, what am I doing? But I was feeling and seeing the impact the hugs were having just in Chicago. And so August of that year, maybe July or August of 2008, I thought, what would it be like to have people hugging around the world at the same time? So I just started emailing all sorts of people, any kind of organization, other free huggers on YouTube, because lots of people have free hug videos now on YouTube from the original. I emailed Juan Man. I emailed global peace leaders. I mean, I was an emailing fiend. And so some people were signing up. I don't remember. I believe the first year we had 5 continents sign up, and I think it was like 23 countries in around 20 states.
Wait, you had the first year, you had 5?
Yeah, and it was just a couple of months of planning, because I did the first one in October. But it really, one of my favorite stories about it is Archbishop Desmond Tutu joined us. And I had seen him speak in Kalamazoo, Michigan that summer, and I just loved his speech. He was all about diversity. I mean, here's a Christian man high up in his rank of his religion, yet he was talking about the diversity of Muslims and, all religions. So I just loved his message. And so I decided I'm going to invite him. And I can't tell you how many info at places I emailed, because there was probably hundreds.
Right.
But his secretary responded to me. And so he joined us that first time, and then he joined us a year later again. So he joined us 2 different times, and then sent me a personal email.
Wow, that's so amazing. I did put a photo that you sent to me with Desmond Tutu and other of his fans, and that to me is so exciting because it demonstrates that we all make a difference, which I think you're all about as well. We all matter, and I think it's easy for us to get feeling small when we look at celebrities and famous people up there on the screen that, what do I matter? But it just proves you did something and you got a response.
Right. Well, and I like to look at the world as, rather than 7 billion people, that it's one person 7 billion times. Because you can't really be afraid of a person or not like a person. It's easy to be afraid of a particular religion that you don't know anything about, or an ethnicity that you don't know anything about. But one person at a time, they're the same as you.
Wow, I wish more of the world would think like that, Carol. I think that's what we all need to think of, that we're all really connected, the same.
Well, and I suspect more of the world does think like that. It's just fear. Fear is like a 2-year-old and throws a tantrum, so it gets all the attention. But love is everywhere.
Yes, it's where we find it, right? We
Yeah.
look for it. So tell us, how do you go about hugging strangers? How do you do this? I mentioned before the show started that I told this to a friend of mine in California, a girlfriend, and she said, "Ooh, hugging a stranger? I don't know if I'd feel comfortable doing that." So what do you need? What do you recommend?
Well, it's very true, and there's so many people who have different, like germophobia or something. So it's not necessarily for everybody. But I just encourage people to give it a try, or just to watch others do it. It just takes an open heart, an open mind, and open arms. And the first time I did it, I was terrified. It's like, it wasn't a safety fear. It was, what are people going to think of me? It was like, are they going to look at me like this little girl needs a hug or something like that? And I still get a little nervous the first time, but once the hugs start coming, it just changes. It's really such a hard phenomena to explain without witnessing it in person. I've had many people, just like your friend, who have come, they're like, I wouldn't hug a stranger. And now they've hugged with me for years because they've seen the impact. I've had others who have come and tried it once and liked it for the impact, but their fear of germs or whatever doesn't make it an easy process for them, so they don't come back. But I've not had one person come to me and say that was a bad experience.
Wow. Now this is an actual day, everyone. This is the first weekend in May all over the world. So tell us, Carol, how would people even start or get involved? And do they make up signs themselves? Do you coordinate them with people who are in their area? How does that work?
It works both ways, actually. You would just make up a sign. I do encourage people to go with somebody. I mean, there are many people out there who do it solo, but I would encourage you to do it with someone. It just needs a free hug sign, and then you want to go someplace public. If you pick private property, they're probably going to kick you out. I mean, and there are some countries that the laws are very strict, so you could get into trouble. So you want to check with those local laws. But it's about just opening yourself up to the possibility and giving eye contact and smiling at people. Some of my huggers stand there and they'll say, free hugs, free hugs. Others will just stand there with their sign. And so it's about what your personality. If your personality is gregarious and you talk to people easily, then you're probably going to be the one to say, you want a free hug. And you'll get more hugs than possibly the person who just stands there waiting. But it's really whatever your comfort zone. As far as the global one, when people sign up, I ask them, can I share your email address with others who sign up in your area? I don't put it anywhere public. And so that way they can try to coordinate together. But most of them just do it separately.
So tell us, what are some of the stories that you'd like to share about your own experiences? Because you've been doing this for, I think you said this is going to be your 8th year?
8 years in January.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us, I think it would be interesting for us all to hear what experiences you've had and then some of the experiences of others.
Yes, absolutely. So for my own personal ones, I had an elderly woman walk up to me one day, and she came up and gave me a hug and said she had just lost her husband 2 weeks prior and missed his hugs. So we were both tearing up together as we hugged. I've had so many people, I just lost a job, I need a hug. I just got a job, I need a hug. It's my birthday, so I always say that hugs heighten celebrations and lessen sorrows. Some personal experiences that were the most impactful for me. We often have a lot of protesters around the area that we hug here in Chicago. And this one time, these 3 busloads of Palestinians got off for a demonstration. And there was a group of people who were there to argue with them. And there was this young Palestinian man. He was just holding a sign, and an older gentleman came up and was yelling at him. And so I got between the two of them, looking at the older gentleman with my free hug sign. I'm like, you need to calm down and be civil. And he just looked at me, but it's like it snapped him out of it. And he's like, why? I'm like, because there's young kids around here. And he stopped yelling. I mean, if you want to have a conversation, a disagreement, that's fine, but yelling is not going to do it. And another time, there was protesters from the Eric Garner death in New York, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people walking by with their arms up, saying, arms up, I cannot breathe. And even though they were talking, it was so, like, the energy, it was just so quiet, and it's like you could have heard a pin drop even though they're sitting there chanting that. And there were hundreds and hundreds of them. And as they walked by, there were dozens and dozens of cops in the area, maintaining the peace on this protest against officers,
Yes.
And 3 different officers came through our hug line that day. And rarely do the police come and get a hug. We see them a lot, but they rarely get a hug. And they all 3 hugged all of us in the line and said, thank you. And you could just see it in their eyes if they really needed it, because, yes, there are some bad cops out there, but there's a lot of good ones, too. So they really needed that.
Did they come, and Roland wants to share some comments. So let me pause for just a moment, and let's share what some of the people are saying. Julie, nice to meet you, Julie. I've done the free hugs. It's a pleasure. Carol's a great leader. Isn't that great? Julie, where are you from? Maybe you can type it in. I don't know if
Julie's from Chicago.
Oh, welcome. So this is one of the first times I'm actually interviewing someone in my own area. So that's great. And Roland, you have another comment. Dave, nice to see you, Dave. If we can make this a you and me world instead of a you or me world, we will all be happier. Very wise, Dave. You are very wise. And Dave has a transformational business himself, and is a really great leader in spreading positivity. So I'm very honored you're here today, Dave. So thank you for your comments. I know I had stopped Carol short in sharing the stories. I had a question for you, Carol, in regards to the officers. You were just talking about police officers getting hugs. I was curious, do you wait for people to come to you with a hug, or do you get close to them with your arms out? How does that work? I can't imagine a police officer giving a hug so quickly.
We always wait, because the point is it should be their choice to do it. We're here to offer. So we just stand there with our free hug sign, and you might have your arms out to say. And again, Julie, who is in the audience here, when she comes, she is one of those gregarious people who will talk to people and say, you want a hug. And she has that energy that draws people in. But if you try to say, you want a hug from a place of unwillingness, then it seems pushy. So it's really, just how the energy and the vibe feels of it. But we really encourage people, like I make sure that the sidewalk is clear, that people can totally walk by us and not get a hug. So they come to us.
Wow. Now, I wanted to also ask you a question that my husband had asked me, and that's in terms of men getting hugs versus women. So he wondered if you ever have noticed, do more women seem to attract the hugs, or do men and women get equal hugs? What do you think?
It's a really good example for me. My huggers, more times than not, I get more men to join me hugging. And I found surprising, because most of my events have more women come to them. So that's been interesting. But it is a great people-person study, just to see who comes in for the hug. the gentleman who is my wingman is my role in Tony. He's a large African American man, and I'm pretty small. So seeing the two of us out there is like as stark of a difference as you're going to get. And I'll watch people thinking, oh, that person's not going to hug Tony. And they run up and give him a bear hug. And somebody that I think will, you know, they walk by with wearing a love t-shirt and they don't get a hug. So I would say probably there are more women that get hugs than men, but it's really it's so diverse. I mean, every nationality, we get people, we're in a very public place in Chicago, so there's a lot of tourists, so we have people from all over the world there.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Will you tell us how tall you are, because people can't tell from your seat, and how do you think that affects people? I'm wondering if people feel more comfortable with you because you're not so tall.
Well, and that's interesting. I mean, I suppose I'll tell you. I tell people I'm 5 foot, but I'm actually 4'10". So I'm 5 foot in heels. I think so because sometimes people, like if there's a group of 8 of us, some people will come and say, you're the least intimidating. But then other times they'll be hugging Tony and not me. So it is really hard to tell on that. But I'm sure that I do not have an intimidating experience there for people. So it's a pretty safe bet that they'll hug me.
Yeah. Well, tell me, why do you think hugging is so important? You know, this isn't a typical business topic that we're talking about right now. We're talking about hugging, and that's something that you would think would be a natural thing. Why do you feel it's so important? What's motivated you to keep hugging people for, now your 8th year?
I think it's important that people want to be seen, and they want to be heard, and they want to know that they matter. And as I believe I said earlier, until you've experienced it personally, just telling you go out and hug a stranger, I mean, I agree, it sounds odd. But to see somebody just smile and tell you that it's the first hug that they've had in weeks, or they walk away and that really made my day, and they're on their phone saying, I just got a free hug. And so you just get to experience bringing a little joy into people's lives. And I also get to experience it comforting people who are going through a hard time. So it's every time, even when it's really bad weather or really hot weather or whatever, there's always at least one hug that I've given out that day that reminds me that's why I was there.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the impact. You were telling us a little bit about some of the stories. How about people who are alone? You know, do people want to talk to you before or after a hug? I mean, what are the feelings that you take away with you after, before, during, and after a hug?
Yeah, some do. Some will stand around and talk and ask us why we're out there doing it, or talk a little bit about themselves. But generally speaking, it's a pretty quick experience. And they may tell us, it's my birthday. And actually what's fun is occasionally they will join us for hugs, because I always bring extra signs. So some of the passerbyers enjoy it, so they just join in with us.
Oh, that's really exciting to think that people come walking by. It's like you really are spreading kindness. Now, what about, are there some people who don't want to hug you, and have you experienced any kind of negative impact? I'm just curious.
You'll hear people occasionally joke about it as they walk by, but really I've not had any negative experiences. Occasionally I will get a hugger join us who is so enthusiastic because hugs is so natural to them that they can be a little pushy about it, so I have to remind them, no, they have to come to you. You cannot force a hug. That's called assault if you're forcing it. But for the most part, many people will even walk by and give us a virtual hug, or they'll wave, or lots of people will say thank you. We need more of this or whatever. So I would say even those who don't get a hug, probably 95% is still positive comments that come back. Yeah. And the ones that aren't positive are just like, you can even hear it in their voice that it makes them nervous to do it. So It's like they kind of giggle about it. But
have you, I'm just curious, I wonder if this is in the minds of the audience, have you ever thought of not feeling comfortable giving certain people a hug?
There's sometimes that I have the energy, but honestly, if there's somebody that I even see that makes me uncomfortable, I realize for myself, it's not a safety issue, there's just something energetically, but they don't come in for a hug. I have never given a hug to somebody that I was really uncomfortable with. I've certainly hugged people that I'm sure I wouldn't be friends with, but there was not, I've never had that experience. Usually, people in that kind of space, they're not prepared to come in for a hug. Occasionally, we will have older gentlemen who you can tell are on the senility issue that might hug a little longer than necessary, but still, and I get kisses on the cheek from older gentlemen all the time, and that is fine because you know what their intent is. There's never a harmful intent. If people were giving me kisses that I did not feel comfortable with, I would say something.
Yeah, that's good. You had mentioned there's different types of hugs too. I would like you to just share that a little bit. Some people who don't have to do a heart-to-heart hug. Can you tell us about that?
You know, there's so much judgment in doing things right in this world. And so we'll get people who will say, you know, if it's not a heart-to-heart, it's not a true hug. And so it's basically you're hugging where your heart is with their heart. And that is a fabulous hug. So is a bare heart hug. So is the person who barely touches me, because I know that that person had to come completely out of their comfort zone to even give me a side hug. I mean, so I hear people, well, that wasn't even a good hug. I'm like, that person just really came out of their comfort zone to give me that hug. That was a good hug. The people who are walking by and just smiling, it's out of their comfort zone, but they have been touched by seeing us there. They're smiling as they walk by. So, I mean, I kind of even call you're smiling with a hug. You know, your smiles are hugging people. So,
you know, I think this whole idea of global hugging really has a deep understanding that, and everyone listening here, I think must realize it in their heart too, is that we're all energy beings. We're energy first, body second. So you're connecting on a really deep level with complete strangers, but you're doing something for their energy, right, Carol? Isn't that a major?
Yes, absolutely. And just like I was saying, when we have protesters in the area, we're in a public park downtown Chicago, so that's where protesters come as well. So the energy is a completely different space when you've got people who are protesting the police or protesting the horse carriages or protesting a religion or whatever. And a few weeks ago, actually, as I mentioned that I don't like to do hugs on my own. I usually have at least one other person. I get there first, and I was there, and there were 3 different religious protesters there. And one of them had a megaphone telling the world, and he was standing on a box right in the area that we do the hug. He was standing on a box telling everybody walking by all the sins that they're accomplishing in their lives, and they need to repent. And then there was another person who was saying similar things on another. So it was like 3 different groups. One was passing out pamphlets of you need to go to church. The other had the megaphone. And the energy was just so heavy. It gave me the courage to stand there with my free hug sign before my other huggers came. I'm like, wait a second. Love needs to be on this corner too. And I got a lot of hugs. I was really nervous, but I actually did it for about 20 minutes for the first time in 8 years by myself. Wow. But it required, it's a part of life. It just shows you what a contrast allows you to grow through. That contrasting experience of being told, this type of person's a sinner, this person's a sinner, you need to repent and all that, gave me the courage to stand there. So it's another learning experience that when we face a challenge, there's something in it for us.
Right. I mean, you're actually growing stronger by pushing yourself to go here right there.
Yeah.
I see Roland has a comment up for us. Let's see who is speaking. B. Wallace, welcome. All it takes is something small to make a difference in each of our lives. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, B. I love that.
This was such a funny little comment from Gary, and I wanted to show it so that we could exemplify that with the attitude shifting, maybe you'll get more hugs than you think, Gary. So it took nearly 40 years for me to have my first real hug. Now, I'm not sure I believe that, Gary, but that's what he's saying here. And maybe after another 40 years on anniversary, I might get another. I don't think it will take that long now that you're open to it. Thank you. And then this one was really a good comment, too. It's only uncomfortable to hug strangers until you get used to it. That comes from Dave Moore.
Wow. Dave, I'm curious if you've hugged a lot of strangers. I would imagine so. Would you put that in the comment stream? And Roland, you've been very quiet, I know. I'd like just to ask you your feedback on some of this, because you have a lot of opinions yourself about this, I'm sure. How do you feel about the idea of giving free hugs?
Well, I'm really, really big on the law of attraction concept, and I've kind of morphed it differently than a lot of people because most people use it as a tool to get things in their lives. But law of attraction is all about the vibration you put out, and the whole concept of these hugs thing is opening the self, the inner self, the higher self, and adding love to that because it's a very positive thing. And if you do those two things, miraculous things will happen, and that's just the way the universe is built. So if you would sit in that vibration, you're going to see things that you don't normally see when you're not in that vibration. So this whole hugs thing is just definitely stepping one person in time at a time into the light of love and into the light, and that's why that you're attracting people. And I really love the concept, and so I congratulate you, Carol. Love your work.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And Roland, I'm a big law of attraction person and say that all the time. Law of attraction is what you're focusing on is what you're creating. So it has nothing to do with about getting, that Ferrari or whatever, unless that's your focus. So I also wanted to comment as far as you were saying about bringing in that love vibration. I had somebody email me after they came through our hug experience, and he emailed me that he had been sober for over a decade, but was going through a really hard time and was planning to go to a bar after work that day. And he came across us giving hugs, and he didn't go to the bar. So it really, the hug helped for sure, but what that hug represented to him was, we see you, we know you matter, and we know you're going to be okay. So it's really about letting people know that the hug is connecting you in more than just that physical connection. It's to see somebody and let them know that they really are important in the world. And it's easy to, when we're going through a challenge, just like Lynn, what you've been going through, it's very easy to focus on the hardship of that challenge. I know many people who have said, when they have a cancer of some sort, that they would not wish that on their enemy, but it was a great experience for them because it really taught them how to really appreciate and love life. A lot of times it takes those deep challenges for some reason for us to really wake up and really appreciate what is in life.
Right, it's the contrast.
Yeah.
We can see there's negative and positive. We have the option to choose. And so Global Hugs ties in so well with your business, Carol, positive focus, because you're bringing out the positive, as is everyone, I think, listening here, because we're all attracted. And I remembered What is the Positivity is the name of Roland's other online show. I remember that. Because we're all attracted to the same thing, positivity. I'd love to hear some of the stories, Carol, from your international huggers, if you can remember some of them, because I think, don't you ask people to give you their feedback after the experience?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, many of them are overwhelmed with just how much love and laughter they experience. I have some who have, I was just looking before this interview to see if I've had any who have been with me from day one. And I think there are some in the States, but by the second or third Global Hugs, there's a gentleman, Yago, in Switzerland, and he does hugs outside of the global event. But on the global weekend, he arranges it in 3 different cities in Switzerland to be able to spread more love. And just his experiences of the people he has met has been a lot of fun. There's a woman, Nervous, who one time she's in Switzerland, and the next time she signs up, she's in Miami. So everywhere she goes, she shares in the hug. My very first Global Free Hug, I had these 2 young girls in Mexico City email me, and they sent me a picture of them holding their free hug sign. And then they apologized to me. They're like, we stood out there for 90 minutes and did not get one hug. And like, we're really sorry that we didn't accomplish our mission. And I had to email them back. I'm like, because they mentioned the fact that their city is so dangerous. And I emailed them back and I said, mission accomplished, because everybody who walked by you was touched and felt it. They might not have been at the space where they could have reciprocated with an actual hug, but they have been changed just by walking by you. So I am in a place where we do hugs. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people walking by. Some of my global huggers, there might be 100 people. There might be 50 people who walk by, depending on where they go. So it's not about counting, oh, I got 100 hugs today compared to your 5. It may be those 5 hugs. You may have stopped somebody from drinking. You may have stopped somebody from thinking about ending their life. You may have helped somebody celebrate something. I mean, it's just to let people know that they matter.
Wow. So you're talking about hugging being like an energy, a positive energy that can be the foundation for change, and also giving them reassurance that they do matter, that they can do whatever they want, that they have love around them. And I do think we need to feel more of that. That's why I'm so passionate about getting positive media, because I feel we're being bombarded by so much negative media constantly, you know, on TV, in the movies, in print. So the question is, what can we do to make a difference? And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple things, though, because, I mean, fear does sell. I mean, it's enticing. It's very easy. I mean, I am surrounded by the work I do to be in a positive mindset. But I think it's also important to realize you're not going to be positive 100% of the time. It's just like, you know, I have challenges in my life. I've had bad days or whatever, but it really is wherever you place your focus, you're going to grow from that. Those challenges that I've gone through, I know, like, I'm better equipped to handle the next challenge, or I've learned something, or I changed course or whatever. So every experience that we face, that's kind of my thing now, is to really embrace life. I mean, positivity heightens celebrations and it lessens sorrows. There's things that are going on in the world right now that, I mean, I can't stop an earthquake, but I can love people through it. The community comes together and helps rebuild. Somebody, you know, the gentleman from America's Most Wanted, his son was murdered 20 years ago. And because of his horrible death of his 6-year-old, he created a database of fingerprinting children and has saved thousands of children's lives because of it. So you can grow from your challenges, or you can wilt from them. You know, it's kind of a choice. And it's not always an easy choice, but it's a choice.
Wow, that's so great what you just said. Making, in a sense, people have heard the saying, making lemonade out of lemons. You know, something really horrible in your life, you can still do something positive as an outgrowth. That's what you're saying.
Well, and I think the importance for me is when people think of being positive, they tend to forget that it's okay to be sad. You know, with what you just happened with your son, of course you were sad, of course you were devastated, and then you allow yourself to feel those feelings and, like, now what can I do with it? But if you stuff negative feelings, they're going to pop back up somewhere. So it's not about, like, okay, I just got fired, but I'm really happy today. It's experience that fear and experience the sadness. Just don't live there. You know, invite the fear to visit, but don't move in.
Oh, I like that. Life is here to visit. Say that again?
I said, let fear visit, but don't invite it to move in. Because fear is a catalyst. Like, if something's going on, it's like, oh, that doesn't feel good. What does feel good? That's where I'm going to put my focus.
I'm just curious, Carol. I'm going to go back a little bit, if you don't mind, just to ask you about your background that got you the way you are. You know, because that's a unique kind of personality, to be able to focus on positivity. Can you just share with us, how do you feel you got shaped to be the way you are, to be so focused on positivity?
I've always been fairly happy, positive person, but I would say probably 10 years prior to now, it was more positive for other people and not necessarily myself. And honestly, my size is a part of it, and I realized I was playing victim to my height. I was using my height as my excuse to not be seen. And it's kind of a silly story, but it's a true one. My favorite restaurant is Potbelly's in Chicago. It's just a sandwich shop. It's not, you know, it's a fast food sandwich shop. But there, the cash stand is really high to order food. I'm 4'10", so I bet it's probably 4 foot. And so I used to go there when I worked downtown in the corporate world. And it would be busy lunchtime, and they would see the person behind me and ask for their order.
Oh, no.
I would hate going in there, even though I love the food. So I would have a friend, like, order me this sandwich, and I'd go get us a seat. And she commented one day, she's like, Carol, you walked in here not to be seen. And I had never thought of it that way. So the more that I own my own power and my own who I am, then I'm seen. So it's, we all are hiding behind our own fears of not being seen. So what is it in your life that you're hiding behind to diminish your own life?
Wow, wow, that's really something. What are you hiding? So you realized it was your height that was stopping you, and you decided to do something about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not going to be an NBA basketball player for sure, but I was using it as my excuse not to even try things. Oh, I'm too small. They're not going to let me do this, or I'm not going to be seen for this, or whatever. So, in her comment, it's like you walk in not to be seen, and I hadn't thought about it, but it was. I was walking through the door. It's like, I bet they're going to see the person behind me again. I really hate that. I feel embarrassed. Blah blah blah. And has it happened since I realized that? It might on occasion, but it's the energy you walk in the door with. Because then I've had many friends who tell me, it's like, I don't even realize you're small until you bring it up. So it's really your own energy. Am I walking in as my big personality, or am I walking in as little Carol who's afraid to be seen?
Wow. So you're choosing actually to step into your power. My friend, Elaine Nieberding, who's done a number of shows, had said that to me once, and I thought it was really profound, stepping into your power. And I have to say, Carol, that I never really thought about your height when I first saw you. It's like it didn't matter to me. I'm 5'9", but to me, I was captivated by how you were glowing, and you were handling this event, and I couldn't believe that one person was in charge of putting a whole major event together with world-class speakers, and that too takes a lot of courage, I think.
Well, and it's a reminder, and I think that that's what I also want to get across is I'm a pretty normal person, so it really, once you want to step into your own power, you can do a lot more than you ever thought. And every time I go out there to do free hugs, when I'm by myself, I step into little girl not wanting to be seen. And then as soon as Tony shows up, then Big Carol shows up. So, wow. But it's mind over matter. If I went out there on my own with Big Carol, I would get all those hugs that I got the day of the protesters. So, I do have that ultimate responsibility to choose who I'm going to show up for every day.
Right. And I think you bring up a good point that having someone at your side is really helpful. People seem to do better with having accountability partners. I'm wondering what tips you would give to people when there's people listening here who may be facing some hard challenges in their life, and I'm sure they would love to hear your tips on what they can do to feel positive inside, and maybe be willing to consider participating in Global Free Hugs the first weekend in May. What tips can we get from you?
Oh, certainly. I mean, again, I think it's really important to embrace the challenge. Whatever you're going through, acknowledge it. Be okay with being sad about it. Be okay with being hurt or frustrated or whatever, because those feelings are part of our life. If we were happy all the time, we wouldn't even know we were happy anymore, because we didn't have an experience to show, here's where I'm happy and here's where I'm disappointed. So being gentle with yourself is a huge thing. Be your own best friend. When you're talking to your best friend going through a challenge, you don't say, you're really stupid. How dare you do that? Why did you do that? You're like, you know what? You're going to get through this. It's a hard time right now, but I know you're strong enough to get through this. So talk to yourself as your own friend instead of we are definitely our biggest enemies and expect so much from ourselves. So that would be one thing. Appreciation and gratitude are huge for me. I start my morning thinking of what I'm grateful for. I've been doing it for a long time, so I can really focus on big gratitude. But when I'm going through a challenge, it may be I'm grateful for the bed that I just woke up for. I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I mean, I have a mother who has health challenges, and she's on oxygen. I'm like, I can breathe on my own. I do not need a machine to help me breathe. Right there, my life is pretty darn good. So you go into and really focus on the little steps of things that you're grateful for, and then bring that into your attention. And then when you start getting into that sad, poor me part, and it's going to happen. I mean, I would love to tell you that I'm positive 100% of the time. I still have moments where I step into victimhood, like even at free hugs. It's like, nobody's going to hug me by myself. So just to be gentle with yourself and then go back into what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that Tony is going to be coming in a few minutes, and that's going to encourage me to be brave again, even though I know I can be brave without Tony. So focusing on what is working in your life, focusing on being gentle with yourself, and sometimes stop thinking about that challenge completely and focus on something else absolutely different. Like if you're having a health challenge with your son, start focusing on, a family member who is doing really wonderful and get into that space of what is going well in your life. But I just really encourage people to realize that being positive 100% of the time is not necessary at all. And when you, like what Roland was saying with law of attraction, I know when you first start learning, you think, oh my gosh, I just said something negative. Now all of a sudden, my car is going to, get a ticket or whatever. You don't have to shift it that quickly. Reach for a better feeling thought. If you're really dealing with a hard challenge right now, me telling you to be happy is probably not possible. But I can tell you, how about trying to be hopeful? How about trying to look at something else that is working?
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful. I know Roland wanted to share something. I was going to, Roland, would you like to put that back up on the screen for us, some of the comments we're receiving? Bill Graham. Hi, Bill. True help is often one-to-one. Hugs are definitely a one-to-one and personal way to show love and support. If we wait until we can help everybody instead of helping somebody, we will end up helping nobody. Oh, wow, Bill, that's so true.
Hey, Lynn, can I comment on that one?
Yes, please.
I think what's also important with that is the one-to-one is even though you feel like you're helping one-to-one, it filters out. Because that person that you just hugged is probably going to hug somebody else. Or, I see it all the time where they walk away talking about, I just got hugged. So it really is about filtering it out. And that's one of the reasons that for me it's important to look at one person rather than 7 billion. The thought of helping 7 billion people is way overwhelming. The thought of helping one, I can do that, and that one person will help somebody. So it really is that simple.
That's the, I told two friends who told two friends commercial, or the ripple effect. I love that.
Absolutely.
It's true. If you give a hug to someone, they're going to probably want to give a hug on to someone else, I would think.
Or even if they don't, their energy is lifted, so now somebody who has walked by them sees their big smile. I love seeing people smile. I mean, it shifts me to see. I'm like, sometimes I wonder why they're smiling, and they may just be smiling just because it's the day.
Beautiful. We have another comment here. Carmen. Hi, Carmen. Unfortunately, I've had many friends pass away this year, and nothing communicates feelings like physical contact. So sorry, Carmen. Hugs are essential when words fail. That is so true. I feel like I also have been going to a number of memorial visits lately, and it just, again, makes me realize how fragile life is and how important it is to live fully in the moment and consciously. I'm sure that that's what you're all about here, living consciously, positively. I wanted also to ask you before we're almost getting to the close, where do you see the future of global free hugs, and also what can the people here who are listening do to share their thoughts on global free hugs or to be involved? So first up, where do you see the future?
Okay, I really want to address one other thing first, though. I think it's important to know as far as hugs that they are healing and that they help people see each other. But the important reason that you have to ask people and not force a hug is there are people who have dealt with trauma, physical trauma with someone else, that a hug is terrifying to them. So it does not bring love and good energy feelings because they're not at that place. So hugs are not for everyone. That would be when you just say a kind word or a smile. So it's really very important that you allow people to come to you for a hug and not insist upon it. I also encourage people that when they're getting a hug to let the hugee determine how tight it is. Some of my huggers love to give bear hugs, and I had an older woman come through the line, and she said she had a bad back, so please be gentle. So if somebody gives me a bear hug, I give them a bear hug. If they barely tap me, then I'll give them a smaller hug. It's still the same intention of seeing them and spreading kindness, so it really doesn't matter. But I think it is important to know that not everybody should be hugged, because they may have had a trauma that it's not good for them.
That's a good point, and to be respectful is very important too.
Well, and if you love hugs, you can't imagine somebody not loving hugs. You know, like, what do you mean? But if they have had, especially if it's like a sexual trauma in their life, that is not something that they can experience and love like you do. So let them be the one to guide how much the hug is.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and as far as where I see global hugs going, it started out as just fun because I enjoyed doing the hugs, but the impact that I've experienced, impact what people have told me that they've experienced, it's really just a way to have people see each other and not judge them on their ethnicity or their religion. Like I said earlier in the conversation, I've had hugs from probably every religion that allows hugs, I should say, and all sorts of different diversities, from young kids to people in their 90s to every size imaginable, wheelchair, you know, everything. So it's really my way of sharing that we all want to be loved, we all want to feel safe, and we all want to feel heard and seen and know that we matter. So my intention is to keep doing it. There are days that I think I don't want to anymore, but then I get a hug. I'm like, okay, I gotta do it again. So it's really about, you know, just spreading the kindness and to let people know that we are truly in this together, even though sometimes it doesn't seem to be that way. And if anybody wants to join us for the global hugs, they can go to positive-focus.com, and on the tab, I believe it says Feel Hugged, and on there it tells you about the story of free hugs and how many countries are involved right now, and a place to sign up for it.
Oh, that's great. I think you also have on your website that video, don't you, of the man from Australia who started the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Which was, wasn't he out of a job or something, and he just decided to give hugs?
He was, I believe he was 21. He's from Australia. He was living in London at the time. He lost his job. He lost his girlfriend, and he was flying home. You know how this was, trying to think what year it was. He goes to the airport in Australia, and there's nobody there to hug him, and he's seeing other people give hugs, and he's feeling lost. And so he grabs a piece of cardboard and he writes free hugs on it. And then he takes it out on the street and he stands there for 15 minutes before he gets his first hug. And his first hug was a woman who said she had just put her dog down that day and she really needed a hug. So he continued doing hugs for a couple of years, and he was actually arrested. He was kicked out of places because nobody knew of it. And then he and his friends created that video in 2006, right when YouTube was taking off. So for a long time, it was the most watched video on YouTube.
Wow. You know, and dare I say that maybe hugging even is more than spreading kindness, but I've been getting more and more aware of how our brains work lately, and I would imagine that by the act of touch, that, you know, a warm, positive touch, perhaps our brain cells are being even more activated, and I don't know all the studies, but I would think it's probably helping our whole body's health. That's what I would imagine.
It absolutely does, and there's been studies that a 26-second hug releases dopamine, which is the happiness hormone. But I don't know that it necessarily takes the 26 seconds, but it's certainly the longer. I mean, 26 seconds, I promise you, is a very long hug. I mean, ours are usually like a couple of seconds kind of thing. But you do, it's just a natural high, and I cannot tell you how many people, sometimes it's fun to stand away from my huggers and just listen to the comments of people, and I mean, they just walk by all excited that they just got this hug, and they'll even come back again through the line. So it really is a way to see people.
That is beautiful. Well, Carol, is there some way, because I know we're connected, before we go, I want to ask, Roland, are there any comments that you'd like to share from any of our viewers right now? Because my comment tracker is not working at the moment.
Maybe just the one that I just posted, because I was summarizing a few things that Carol said, so it's not an exact quote, but the points that she was making are that it's okay to be sad. That you can turn away from the negative. That's the choice that we have. So that's one point that I pulled out of what she was saying. And then it was, you can let fear visit. Visit is a great cue to see how you feel about something, but you don't have to invite it in. You don't have to attach yourself or polarize yourself to the negative and dwell on it and so forth. So let fear visit, but don't invite it in. And then the last one is to remember that what you do creates a ripple effect. It's like someone leaves you with a smile, and then they're going to go out and they're going to show that smile to how many more people. And they're going to hug so many more people. And then that person's going to hug somebody else. And there is a ripple effect. And that one little movement on your part has more effect than you know.
That's so true.
So I just wanted to add those things.
I love that. Thank you. Well, Carol, before we do our virtual hug, and I want to encourage everyone to just consider participating in Global Free Hugs. And I'm sure you can check in with Carol going to positive-focus.com. What are some important points that you'd like people to remember before we leave? And I want to let everyone know that Carol's willing to stay for a few minutes in our green room here. So if you'd like to have a chance to meet and talk with her afterwards, please stay tuned to the program after we end the broadcast, and you'll be able to come in. Roland will share the link and have a chance to talk to Carol. But some final thoughts, Carol, on what you'd like people to remember about positive focus as well as free hugs.
Thank you. I think the important part is to remember wherever your focus is what you're creating. So even what Roland was saying earlier, if I do a random, like I yelling at somebody on the street about something, that ripple effects out too. So what do you want to leave people with? Do you want them to be happier because you're coming, or do you want them to be happier because you're leaving? It's a choice that you get to make. And as far as the hugs go, absolutely, I would love people to join us and spread more love and kindness on the weekend of the 7th and 8th. You can do it publicly, but really all weekend long. Just hug the people that you know, that you love, and do it with intention that you're doing it with the world that weekend as well. You can send me pictures. People send pictures, and then I create a video. I've been doing that every Global Hug event too, and I include it in a video of all the hugs around the world. So the important thing to me is to remember that you really do matter in this world, even if you're feeling alone and solo. You matter to me, and you matter to the world, but most importantly, you need to know you matter to you.
That's so important. And you don't have to hug all day, right, Carol?
Nope. I hugged for 11 hours on the second Global Hug, and I promise you I'll never do that again.
Oh my God.
I was a little loopy at the end of that. But no, you could do it for 5 minutes. I usually do it for 90 minutes to 2 hours, but I really encourage everybody who's listening to at least hug somebody daily, but if nothing else, that weekend. And hug yourself. Just give yourself a big squeeze.
Oh, I love that.
If you're breathing, you're doing something right.
So let's do a virtual hug before we close, Carol. Can we do that together, or Roland? I don't know if you want to look up, or how would you recommend?
Okay, just everybody put their hands out like they're going to go in for a hug, and then just squeeze.
Let me get the camera in here.
Big hugs, everyone. Big hugs.
Big hugs to all of you. Have a hugging day, a hugging spring, a hugging year. And I am going to look forward to being able to be back with you in the Difference Makers sometime in the next month. So please look for me, and please feel free to share this program with your friends, family, colleagues, because we all can use a little more kindness, and you do matter, as Carol said. So thank you. My best to all of you, and if you have a few minutes to meet with Carol after the program, please feel free to join us. All the best to you. Take care. Bye-bye.